Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Sarah Mansell and I will be chairing the meeting today. We are starting a little bit late. There are problems with traffic and two of our councillors are still stuck in traffic, but we think that we're going to make a start, otherwise people will be here all morning and that's not fair on officers or members of the public. So this meeting will be streamed to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any members of the public attending the meeting object to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that they are not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you intend to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. May I please request that mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that your laptops are switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. So first of all, we have some introductions. On my left, we have the planning officers. We have the area planning manager, Gemma Walker, and the legal advisor, what's the name? Claire Kennedy. We will also have case officers, Alex Bredman, Finlay Mackenzie and Nikita Goodrich will come to present their respective cases. We are also expecting housing enabling officers to join us for one of the cases. And either side of me we have the governance officers, Claire Philpott, Alicia Norman. So can I move to the agenda, please? Apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chair. We have received apologies from Councillor Julie Morgan.
Thank you. And as I've said, we are two councillors who are making their way through the traffic and hopefully will join us later. Item number 2, to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any to declare?
Thank you. Yes, I know one of the neighbouring, an owner of the neighbouring business in the I1.
And that presumably is okay. Declarations of lobbying. Any lobbying? No, I haven't received any. Item number 4, declarations of personal site visits. Any personal site visits? Item number 5, confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 19th of November 2025. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? No? Could I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. And a seconder, Councillor Warboys. The Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 5 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. So the minutes of the meeting have been confirmed and will be signed. Item number 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 7, we now move to the schedule of planning applications. We were changing the order of the applications. So we will be considering application number DC 250263 first, then we will move on to the case in Walsham-le-Willows and then the one in Bramford. So as ward member for the application in DC 250365, the Verge of Progress Way, Councillor Elkin will not be able to participate in the debate or vote for the application, but she is permitted to ask questions and speak as a ward member. So I will now invite Finlay Mackenzie to introduce the application to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is in the Mid-Suffolk Business Park in the former USAF airfield. So this is a wide aerial view of the site. As you can see on the west side is the Progress Power gas power station currently under construction, the turbines, There are some houses about 100 metres to the east, and then to the southeast along the main road is the actual town of Eye. Looking in a bit closer, we've got, that's the site there, so that's the grass verge. We've got some offices, so that includes a charity and a funeral directors. We've got a food supplies company warehouse there, and a pallet storage warehouse to the southeast. This is a map of constraints. The only one on there is a grade 2 listed building within a wider agricultural farm, so it's not really within the setting, the application site. Here is the red line plan, so you can see it's this sort of small square, the verge, the side of the road, next to an existing electrical substation. Here is a close-up view, so we can see the existing hedgerows along the northeast and southeast sides and the proposed area of the battery storage unit. So you can see the 4 units, and then to the north of that is the grid interface cabinet. It's quite sort of translucent on this plan here, but you can also see the outline of where the fencing will go. Here are some elevations of the timber fence that will surround the battery unit. And this is a 3D visualization, but excluding the proposed timber fencing. And here is another plan, again, just showing that same 3D visualization, but in 2D. So that's the green mesh fencing and the 4 battery units. Here is an example photo from a completed scheme in Tunbridge in Kent. So you can see how the green mesh fencing works alongside the timber fencing as well to screen the development. And here is a wider view to show the sort of scale of the proposed battery unit. Consultee comments. The Town Council in Eye have objected. They raise concerns over other battery storage system applications in the area, such as the Fieldview Yaxley one, which is to the southwest of the site, well, a couple of 100 metres to the southwest of the site. And no other consultee objected. So we didn't have any objection from anyone. Environmental Health did request some conditions within their comment. These are the list of recommended conditions that were set out in the report. So we've got standard time limit, approved plans, construction hours. Environmental Health requested a post-installation noise report due to concerns with the neighbours approximately 100 metres to the east. The biodiversity enhancement measures, so that would include the retention of the existing hedges where possible. Decommissioning and site restoration, so after the 30-year lifespan of these boxes, if they're no longer used, then the site should be decommissioned and returned to how it was, how it is currently. A connection agreement, so that we know that the battery box is connected to the grid. Fire safety management plan, so that would outline what happens if there is an issue with the boxes, if they do catch fire. So neighbours, including the businesses and the residents, would be notified, and they would know what to do in case of a fire. And emergency access and water supply, so that again sort of ties in with that above condition. That was for what to do with the water or whatever is used to extinguish the fire if one does occur. These are my site photos that I took in August of this year. So you can see the hedge is quite large, quite big, but will probably be shaved down a bit to accommodate the battery unit. And again, you can see the electrical substation that's to the south there, and just behind is the pallet distribution centre and the food supplies company as well. And then that to the left of the picture, that's the funeral directors and the charity offices. There you go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from members? Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. Not specifically planning, but it's what you just mentioned there with the fire plan. This is a remotely operated site. It's automatic. I assume, or am I correct, in assuming, therefore, it would have an automatic smothering system, remotely operated smothering system in relation to controlling fire.
Yeah, I believe there's an aerosol automatic system within the units that would extinguish fires as soon as they are sensed by the sensors, but the fire management plan is for if something goes more wrong than that, then the local fire service would be called out, or they'd be called out anyway from the automatic sensors. So that should suppress any small fires, but if there is anything significantly larger, then we've got a plan in case. It's better to be safe than sorry in that regard, especially with these units.
Thank you. So the members are, well, Councillor Carter's just arrived. I assume Councillor Hardingham's also on his way. Because we've already started this case, they won't be able to participate, but they can participate in the next case. So thank you for letting us know you were going to be late, and I'm sorry we started before you got here. Councillor Warboys, did you have a question?
Yes, Chair. Well, a couple really. One is decommissioning. I think I might have missed this in the papers. Is this a temporary site or leased for a specific amount of time, like others we've seen for 40 years or so?
So the battery unit has a lifespan of 30 years. So if after 30 years it's no longer needed, or if within that, or within any time period of the site there, if it's no longer used for, say, 6 months, then if it's not being used, then it's better to be taken away and returned back to how it was. So that's just, it's not necessarily a temporary permission, but it's in case the use ceases, then it's not going to stay there forever and sort of be an eyesore and sort of get a bit ruined over time. So we can make sure that it's returned back to sort of how it was without it staying there forever, not being used.
I understand, thank you. I've got a second question. One is the Health and Safety Executive, he's got no objection in principle. It mentions an undisclosed pipeline. Do we know any more? Or it seems to sort of say it's up to the battery storage developers to sort it out. But
yeah, I think that is probably beyond the scope of our planning. If it's undisclosed, then that would be up to developers when they input it in. But we don't have, there's no concerns have been raised about it. The Health and Safety Executive don't object because of this unknown pipeline underneath. If it does mean that development has to change or cannot be implemented, then that's on the developers. But so far as we can do within planning, it's not a hurdle to refuse the planning permission.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I just ask about this? It's not a temporary permission, but the batteries have a life of about 30 years. So if they need replacing after 30 years, do they need to come back and get more planning permission? Or can they replace them because it's not a temporary permission?
As we haven't sought a temporary permission, they can replace them just as you can, in a household extension, if a brick goes a bit, wrong, you can replace a brick. A battery is very different in that sense, but, we are allowing these battery units to be put in if granted, and, if something goes wrong, you can replace it. If they get to the end of their lifespan, you can also replace it.
And can I also ask, although you've said to us that they're going to obviously trim back that hedge, but have we got any guarantee that they're not going to grub it out in our permission? Can we insist that they leave it there as a screen as part of the permission?
So we've got a biodiversity enhancement and landscaping condition recommended, so that would likely trigger either prior to works above slab level or prior to the commencement of development. So we would know before the unit is installed, we could say within that scheme, please do not just completely dig out the existing hedgerow. If it's trimmed back and it dies, replace it sort of like for like. But that would be included within the discharge of conditions.
Yeah, because if they grub it out, I think they'd struggle to get a net gain of biodiversity. So I guess that will cover that. Are there any other questions to the officer? If not, then I will now move on to the public speakers. We don't have anyone from our town council. We don't have an objector or a supporter, but we do have the agent, William Burnett. So if you would like to say whatever you want to say, you've got 3 minutes, and I will time you with my high-tech timer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Will. I'm a development manager here at Amkin Energy, who are the applicant for this scheme.
Could you move the microphone a little bit closer, because I'm struggling to hear you.
Yeah. Hello, is that all right? Cool. The application for the committee today is for the installation and operation of electrical equipment, something we call a battery box. This application is identical to over 200 projects that have been consented across the UK in the past 2 years, including schemes in Ipswich, Suffolk, and within this local authority. The UK's energy mix is rapidly changing as we transition to a net zero system. The closing of coal plants and reducing our reliance on fossil fuels is a good step, but with it comes new challenges. Solar and wind are intermittent sources of energy, and we can't just turn them off on and off to match the changing need for electricity. So when the wind isn't blowing, we are still using natural gas to power our homes and businesses. And perhaps more shockingly, when the wind is blowing too much, we are paying wind farms to turn off so we can't store the excess power. Now, energy storage is a solution to this issue and works by capturing excess energy which is generated during windy periods and utilising it when it isn't. In doing so, this project will save almost 5,000 tonnes of CO2 across its lifetime. But it's not all about net zero. It's about energy security and lowering bills for local people. Increasingly, we are transitioning to EV cars, heat pumps, and installing air conditioning, but our local electricity networks are struggling to keep up. So by connecting at low voltage, this battery box will help support the local network, ensuring energy security for local people. And with this comes cheaper network upgrades for UKPN, which means lower bills for people within this area. Now, of course, with any new technology, it's important to consider safety and environmental impacts. And I'm aware of concerns raised regarding fire safety and pollution risk. However, I'd like to reassure members that this battery box uses lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are considered the safest chemistries available. Each unit is fully enclosed and fitted with continuous remote monitoring, early warning fire detection for heat, smoke and gases, and an automatic internal fire suppression system. In the unlikely event of a fault, the system automatically shuts down and manages the issue internally without human intervention. Although the site is unmanned, audible and visual alarms activate on the units, and nearby personnel are instructed to evacuate, and the Fire and Safety Rescue Service is contacted immediately. A 25-metre safety perimeter is established, which is greater than the separation distances to surrounding buildings. And we've also consulted with Suffolk Fire and Rescue, who reviewed this proposal and raised no safety concerns. Finally, on this point, as this is a small-scale BESS, it does not require bulk water cooling or containment ponds, and therefore presents no credible risk to the aquifer or nearby water. I would just like to correct a few points made by consultees. The application does demonstrate the local benefits of this battery box. The unit imports and exports power to the local grid, meaning...
Are you almost finished?
Yes, just a few more sentences, sorry.
If you could do your last sentence, thank you.
Sure. Meaning it directly supports residents and businesses in the I area. I'd like to thank the council for taking a progressive approach to supporting energy storage projects in this area. It's nice to see some forward-thinking decision-making, and we're pleased to have seen some approvals already in this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from members to the agent? No? Thank you very much. And finally, we move to the ward member, Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't want to say too much, but I just, it's obviously a really small unit and there hasn't been an objection from the fire service. But I did want to raise just a couple of sort of local questions that have cropped up. It is really close to several businesses and a few homes. I think the nearest business is 25 metres away to the funeral services and about 30-something metres to the food processing plant. And I just wanted to mention that the modelling, I know this is a different project, but the modelling that was carried out for the a previous large-scale BESS application that some of my colleagues will probably remember demonstrated that quite toxic fumes from a battery fire could travel up to about 70 metres. So I know the report says that the Fire Chiefs Council guidance for battery projects recommends that the local fire and rescue service develops a site-specific emergency plan, which we've heard talked about. But I just wanted to sort of raise, really, will that plan specifically include engaging with the nearest businesses to let them know that they need to update their own emergency plans? And we heard that there are sort of beepers on the units, but the businesses nearby actually need to know what could happen and that they're going to need to update their own guidance. I also wanted to ask how businesses and residents would be alerted in the event of a fire. I mean, I understand that there are sort of alarms on the unit, but I don't know if that's going to let residents know they might need to stay indoors or close windows. So I wanted to ask how sort of that local, given it's unmanned, how people will actually find out if there is a fire and if they need to take any action. The queries I had about water have already been covered. So the final thing really was just to say that this is the second quite similar application on a fairly small strip of verge owned by Mid-Suffolk Council. So I just again wanted to raise, are there any sort of limitations on how many of these units can be placed in a sort of similar environment? Are we going to see lots more of these filling up the rest of the verge, or is this limited in some way? So that was all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the ward member? Councillor Warboys?
Well, I'm not sure it's an open question. It's something the ward members just said about this updating of emergency plans. Is it mandatory for businesses to have an up-to-date emergency plan in case of fire hazards? Throw that one out.
Is that
I don't know.
a question for the officers?
I think we might struggle there, Chair. I don't think that's something that's within the planning remit as far as what other businesses do or don't have to do. Certainly in terms of the fire safety management plan, we can make sure that there is a notification system in place whereby once the company have got any issues with their fire alarms going off, how do they let people know? Have they got a point of contact? I'm sure we can offer that. What the businesses do, we are probably out of our remit, and certainly I don't think we've got any advice as to whether it's mandatory or not to have a fire evacuation plan. Sorry.
But within the fire safety management plan, this applicant will need to demonstrate that they have some method of letting the local businesses and the local residents know if there's any emergency.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely within our remit and possible to organise. So
and also, I notice on page 55, we also have an informative for proactive working under the NPPF. By that, do you mean proactive within the community or with the planning department?
No, that is more about how we deal with applicants and how the process evolves through the application period rather than anything else. It is more of a planning informative than anything else. But if members felt they wanted something about the local community, I mean, we have got a construction management plan, so there would be something at the construction phase. Whether you wanted more through the operational phase could be something for debate.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the ward member or questions arising from what the ward member has said? Okay, so thank you for that. I will now open this up for debate. I just remind that Councillor Carter and Councillor Hardingham are unable to participate in the debate and vote on this item. So the rest of the planning committee, over to you. A bit of debate, please. Councillor Hardingham.
Thanks very much. I completely understand town councils and indeed any neighbouring concerns that people might have about this best unit, but I think it's probably in the best place for at the moment, and I think frankly there's no one's even written in or put anything on the planning portal, and so but basically, like I say, understanding their concerns, but I'm very happy to go along with the officer's recommendation and go for approval on this unit.
You are actually making a proposal
Yep,
to
I
approve
am.
this. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lawrence, thank you. And did you want to make any comments, Councillor Lawrence?
Yes, please. Thanks, Chair. I don't think we should get too involved in the response to a fire as such. Even if we do have a fire management plan, surely the arrangements for either evacuation, shutting windows and everything else will be done by the emergency services tending the incident. Normally it would be the police, so the fire brigade would attend and deal with the fire, and the police would arrange whatever area needs to be isolated as regards the public. So I don't think we should get too focused on what's in the fire plan in that respect.
Thank you. Any further comment? I'd just like to say, I mean, this is a relatively small battery storage. And yes, I understand, I'm sympathetic to the fact that if you've got lots of them and they're all really close together. So I presume that should we get any more applications for similar small battery scale things, there will be some sort of cumulative impact assessment if we have a lot in a very small area. I'm just looking to the officers there who are nodding.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Chair. Very much in how we normally deal with planning, we've got one. There aren't other impacts that we're concerned about. If we get a second one next door and a third one and more in the area, each one will have to have considered the previous. So it would build up cumulatively through the applications. Although, just to say, the only reason this is before committee today is because it is mid-Suffolk owned land, so they may not all come here. But yes, we would all look at those impacts.
Thank you. So if no one else has got anything further to say, I'm going to ask the I'm going to ask the area planning manager to read out the proposal, but we've only got a proposal that's as in our papers. So I'm going to ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote. We are voting for the recommendation on page 54 of our papers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress.
Yeah, I did say you're not allowed to vote or debate.
Thank you, members. Chair, that's 4 votes for, which is unanimous. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So we're now going to move on to item 7A.
I'm not sure the case officer has arrived yet, Chair.
So Nikita is for the other.
That might be.
If
yeah.
that's right,
Oh, right.
Chair, I am checking where our case officer is. He was on his way and I was hoping he would be here by now, but I haven't got a reply as
Is
yet.
he in the building?
I don't know at the moment.
Oh.
I will try and
So
track him
maybe do
down.
we need to take a 5-minute break?
Let's have a 5-minute break.
Let's have a 5-minute break and see if you can locate him. If not, we may have to move to the other case because we don't want to be here all day.
No,
so we'll take a 5-minute break and hopefully we can get the officer ready for Walsham Willows. Thank you, and apologies for the slight delay to get everyone ready in the room. Now, before we move on, Councillor Carter and Councillor Hardingham have now arrived and will be able to participate in the debate and the vote on this item. But I just need to ask them if they have had any, if they've got any declarations of interest or lobbying or site visits to declare. Councillor Hardingham.
Yes, I should declare an interest in respect of the battery box application, as I am a customer of Clean Energy.
We've already done that case, so that's fine. Councillor Carter, I presume you've got nothing to declare. Thank you. So I'm now going to invite Alex Bredman to introduce the application DC 25-01874, land to the north of Well Cottage, Palmer Street, Walsham Le Willows. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Application DC 25-01874. It's an outline application with all matters reserved, save for the access point, and the proposal is for up to 15 dwellings, garages, vehicle and pedestrian access, associated works and infrastructure. So obviously, given the nature of the application being outlined and that all the details at this moment are saved, the presentation is fairly brief, but this is more so to give you an idea of context, and again, we're more so looking at the principle of development and the access point. So the site itself, within Walsham Willows, the wider context here is it's within the village with development, housing surrounding at all borders. It's in the village settlement boundary. Sorry, that's not the one I thought it was going to be. But I'll jump forward one more quickly. So here's a constraints map. So you can see it's within the village settlement boundary. That's the brown outline. There we go. That's the brown outline here. So within the village, we have the conservation area just sort of touching that corner of the site to the northeast, but again, not within. In terms of listed buildings as well, we've got the one up here, which our heritage officers deem is of a sufficient distance away to not be of really any discussion as a matter of it. But we also have the Well Cottages down here, which are non-designated assets, but otherwise on the site we don't have any major constraints. It's not showing up on the map for some reason, but we do have a few patches of surface water, areas at risk of surface water to the northern boundary, and a few others to this boundary as well. But for the majority, these are just to the edges of the site, not within it. So we have got an indicative layout plan, but again, this is just to kind of give an idea of what development on the site could look like. We have to take this with a grain of salt for now. This is not a guarantee that this will be the final product, but it at the very least demonstrates that we can comfortably fit 15 dwellings on the site with sufficient distance to the existing dwellings on either boundary, really. In terms of the access point, obviously, as we noted, that is to the north, adjoining to some of the comments refer to as the Elmside Estate. I think just for ease in my report, I've referred to it as the Elm Road Estate, but we're discussing the same estate there. Again, just giving another indicative layout plan and showing how the access road could look as it curves along the edge of the site. And then just to lastly show some site photos, the map here is just to illustrate where we're looking. So this flat edge is showing where we're facing now. So here we're facing towards the northern edge of the site. Here facing towards the east, and you can see this row of housing and the boundary treatment of fences. Looking over to the west, we have more bungalows along this side of the site, but also a lot more planting with the trees. And this is facing down, so you can see Well Cottages here, backing onto the site. And here is a secondary access, although the red line plan ends along this fence line. So whilst there's another field access here, it's not within the red line plan. And then again, we come back to the proposed access point, a field access. And now we're looking at the site from Elm Drive. Again, further back, just coming in to show kind of how it reads in the context of the existing estate. And then a few other photos facing the other direction towards the existing estate. Again, just to give yourself some context of the area and how this may fit in the long term. And again, given the nature of the application, I haven't got anything else to show you at the moment, but as per the officer recommendation, members are resolved to grant the application subject to conditions, informatives and planning obligations. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members for the case officer? Councillor Hellingham.
Thanks. So I can see it's just grass there. It's not sort of scrub land. So how do they get into, how do they get in to mow the grass or whatever they're doing with the crop, the land, whatever they're doing? What is the entrance way? And do they get in there regularly with the tractors? And what at the moment is the traffic and where does it go?
So to get into the site, I believe it's just that field access. So where they're proposing the access, they'll just go through that gate.
They literally take from, tractor with the mower on the back or whatever through all the estates and everything. Is that what they're doing at the moment?
I would assume so. I don't know for certain how they're mowing it. So I visited the site twice, and the first time I went, it was quite overgrown. It had been cut the second time when the pictures were taken. Those were back in October. I don't know if the agent can share a little bit more on that later, but I'd have to assume that that's how they're getting access.
But basically, they're using the current exit that they're proposing for this.
I would assume so, but I don't know for certain, I'm afraid.
Maybe that's something we can ask the parish or the ward member. Are there any further questions? Councillor Lawrence and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Are you able to show, I think the parish makes a good point about Grove Road access, and I can see through the report that because this is outline only, this seems to me to have been kicked into the long grass. Could you show us on your maps there where the Grove Road access would be, please?
If I go back to, so this is where the access would be from within the site. So you can see there's, it's probably not too clear. There's a small gate there and a strip of grassland essentially, which on the map would be this strip here. And then obviously Grove Road comes out to here. If I then get the, sorry, I'm going to have to go right back to the beginning. Probably the next one. Again, so just down here, small strip of land, and then Grove Road comes down here. So that's the access they're referring to. But again, as you can see from the map, that strip of land it's not within the red line plan.
Sorry, Chair. Can I add to that, Chair?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just that it's also not within the blue line land, so we can confirm it's not in the applicant's ownership, which is why there are essentially no options available. We are dealing with the land that they own on that site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of questions, but one was about Anglian Water. I think still have an objection. So I just wondered if you could explain why that is, what they're objecting to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So Anglian Water have objected on the basis that they don't currently have the infrastructure, but at the same time they have also recommended a condition which I think it probably has raised some confusion, because to me they're saying we're objecting but kind of not at the same time. I think, as I've talked about in the report, they ultimately have a duty, so they have to make sure they provide a connection. Sorry, Gemma, this has come up on a few other cases, so I don't know if you're willing to shed some light on
I'm
that.
happy to join that conversation. So, yeah, it is a difficulty we're facing where it is a statutory duty for Anglian Water or any water company to provide appropriate connections to properties, whether that's for fresh water or foul and sewage, they're required to do so. As I think we've talked about previously with the Hartismere Water Resource Area, if you are looking for a business, they don't have that statutory duty, so you've got that sort of difference between the two. So we're looking at houses, we've got a statutory duty to connect to them. So I think that is what they are objecting to. That they don't currently have that capacity, but they will be required to bring it in, and that is what the condition does do. The condition does make sure that the phasing works, that at the time that they're bringing on board their infrastructure, that works with the connections for the houses. So it is more about how it works, I suppose, but they very much, everything we're getting from them is a holding objection, but we have had advice that that's not a reason to refuse based on statutory duties and the fact that you could control it by condition. You know, were we to discuss that at appeal, the inspector is going to say, well, you can reasonably deal with that by condition, so why is that a reason for refusal? So I think it's possibly how they word things in terms of that holding objection rather than anything else. Certainly when you see their full comment, as Alex said, it's holding objection at the top, and then they explain their issues, that they would need to bring infrastructure on board, but then they say, oh, but we can do that by condition. So then we have to say to you, that's how they've described it as a holding objection. But yeah, certainly they've put a condition on to say that's how you could deal with it. Thank you, Chair.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, it was, well, just a follow-up to that, kind of, if I've understood it, they have a statutory duty to connect, but they, as far as I know, they don't have a statutory duty to provide sufficient infrastructure.
I think that would be a fair way of putting it, but it's up to them to resolve the infrastructure problem. And what that condition has done in the past, what we've sort of looked at is the phasing of the development to come in alongside their infrastructure.
Okay.
So that the two do work together.
Did you have another question rather than a follow-up?
Yes. Sorry. There was just some concerns raised in the papers about sort of connectivity as well for sort of footpaths and cyclists. And I think the parish council had asked if there could be more of a sort of master plan approach that would look at, you know, holistically at the whole site. So my question was, can that approach be taken? Yeah, and if not, you know, what's the reason for it not being?
Yeah, I think probably at this stage, given that we haven't got the full design, it probably wasn't the right time to ask for that approach to be taken, but take that on board completely. And I think it's something we can obviously encourage, should you be minded to approve. We can encourage that prior to the reserve matters, of course. Possibly something that, again, if preferable, we can look to include as a condition. It's not at the moment, but again, I can leave that for yourselves to consider. The one thing ultimately with the neighbourhood plan policy is I don't think, again, it strongly encourages this kind of discussion. And I think that would be, given that it's kind of the last open plot of land within the village, I think that would be great for the village and the residents to have a bit more say in how that's developed. But it's not something within the policy that is strict, so it wouldn't be a reason for refusal if they didn't take that approach. But again, we can encourage it.
Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. On page 31, in paragraph 5.6, you talk about residential amenity, and the policy seeks to ensure development does not detrimentally affect residential amenity of neighbouring residents. Now, elsewhere in the documentation, it's clearly stated that the Elm estate suffers traffic issues and dust carts can't do all the emptying of deliveries. Emergency vehicles may not get through, and yet this aspect seems to be swept aside by saying because it's only outline at the moment, that can be considered later on. And I'm trying to ask is, why is it not taken into the fact that this access through the Elm estate does affect the residential amenity of that estate, and yet it doesn't seem to be dealt with in the papers here?
I think in the highway section section 7, there's further discussion on that point. Ultimately, we have County Council as the Highways Authority provide comments. I don't think their comments, they don't unfortunately give any real explanation, but they've not objected to the scheme, and we have to ultimately take their view and assume that they've done their due diligence and have looked at the estate itself. Given that they have not objected to the access, I don't think there's any evidence, at least for me, to go against their response.
So are you saying then that the information provided by the parish council isn't being considered because they're providing evidence to say that it's just the opposite?
It's a written response against another written response. I have to take my consultee. I think I have to give good weight, I should say, to the consultee response. It's not the case that I've dismissed the comments by the parish council, because I do think they're discussed. But as I said, we can manage traffic flows through construction management plans during the development of the site. But outside of that, I said I've got a response from the Highways Authority, which don't consider it to be a reason for refusal, and I have to give that the weight that it deserves.
Thank you. Any further questions for the officer? Councillor Carter?
At this stage, I'm aware we don't have any definitive plan, but I'm trying to work out the width of that access way. From judging by the pictures, I can't get the measurement. So, would it be a single road, any single road in and out, and how wide would be pavements on each side of that? Because I'm very aware of that area of the pavements. There is a difficulty. So, how many paths are there? Is there going to be any issues with pedestrians and the road, and then also what sort of angle would the road be going out of from that gateway to join up? Because it's not clear at all from the information that we have.
Sorry, we're just getting the slides up so we can show that a little bit more clearly.
Sorry, it's right.
It's right at the end. There we go. So at the moment you've got a footpath on the left and on the right, and then the roadway where essentially the two cars are parked. So you can see the width of the road there actually with the two cars. That then goes through onto the site. There's a small grass verge, and then you've got the gateway, which I don't think we quite zoom into, but there is a I think, yeah, there we go. We've got the gate at the end, but hopefully that clarifies a little bit more on the width that's showing through. I don't know, Alex, if you've got the plan showing the specific access. I think that's quite a little plan, unfortunately, for size-wise. There we go.
Sorry, I'm doing it on the wrong one.
We can just have a little look at the plan as well. There we go. So I think hopefully you see that obviously that then joins up with the road right at the top of the screen onto that existing, and I think you can just see the footways on the existing. I have to admit my eyesight's not quite good enough to see it on that one. But Alex, maybe you can help us out with what's their footway wise. So yeah, so we've got the 2 footways on the existing road. We don't get 2 footways on the proposed road, but the slight, hopefully members can see it, I am struggling. There is a pinky orange line on the right hand side of the grey roadway. Thanks, Alex, that's really helpful. That is the footpath as proposed. So hopefully that clarifies, but happy if there's any more questions.
Councillor Carter, did you want to come back?
Yes, I'm just struggling. So it's got the width there, but from the pictures provided, it looks like the access to the gate has hedging up close to it. Is that width given? Is this given actually? Are they going to remove the hedging and the trees to one side? How is that width going to be provided for the road? Because it appears that the road measured is wider than the gap shown in the pictures. So how are they going to get that width because it's not currently there. None of it is clear because what's shown there doesn't match up with the pictures of the entranceway.
Sorry, we're scrolling again through the pictures. We'll come back.
Does this help at all? So in any case, I think the fencing would come down, so then you've got that larger gap. And if we extend out from the site, that road, taking away the fencing, can come down and essentially be the same equal width to the existing road. And you can see 2 cars on that road as is.
Thank you. I think Councillor Hardingham had his hand up.
Yes, in respect of the pink line, I see a reference. It's not entirely clear whether that is actually a raised pavement with a curb or whether it is just a shared surface. I guess that would be subject to negotiation further down the line, but you know, it needs to have a adequate cycle, pedestrian and road access. So so something really up to date to modern standards, and not a narrow shared surface with just a dotted line down the side, which, as I know full well, is pretty awful cycling.
Is there a question?
So is that part of the negotiation for the next for a future planning application, a detailed one?
Yeah, again, this plan is more so just to give, I hate to keep repeating the word, but it's just indicative purposes, just show how it could look. So that would be something at reserve matters we'd finalise.
Securing the point of access at the moment.
Yeah.
Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think this access road is a bit of an issue along Elm Drive. From what Suffolk Highways have said, their comments are restricted to the actual drive within the development. They haven't really commented on Elm Drive and the impact on Elm Drive. Is that reasonable?
Their comments don't really offer much of an assessment, if I'm honest. It's just a no objection. So I can't offer much more than that, because they've not given us any more.
We're looking for better from Suffolk County Council Highways, aren't we? Because the standard within the development looks higher than the standard along Elm Drive. So once you get down Elm Drive, it looks as though you can actually sort of move around a lot better because of parking and things.
I think that's an opinion, maybe, rather than a question.
Sorry, yes. I'll reserve.
Yeah, we'll reserve that one for debate. Are there any other questions for the officer? I think we might have a lot of comments. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. It was just about the biodiversity net gain. It says it's currently a loss of 30%, but that will be addressed at reserved matters. So I can't remember. Is that covered? Is that automatically? Is it in the conditions that has to be addressed?
Yeah. Again, at the late stage, once we've got a final scheme, we would have a better understanding of what that uplift would be. So I think naturally at the moment, just because the site is greenfield, and taking away some of that, there would be a loss. But again, that would be addressed at the later stage.
So it has to be addressed later. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for the officer? If not, then we'll move on to public speakers. We have, it says parish meeting, but Walsham and Willows has got a parish council.
There's no one from the parish anyway.
But there's nobody from the parish anyway, okay. I think it should be parish council. We do have an objector, a Lester Draper. Thank you very much and welcome to Planning Committee. You have 3 minutes. You need to press the button on your microphone and I will time you with my high-tech timer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here basically to raise my objection and concerns over this access I am a resident, so experience a lot of traffic issues down the road. There are many written objections to this access. I trust the committee's had access to those, so it's not just me. There are quite a number of people that have objected to this, bearing in mind the size of the estate. Even the parish council has objected, and they have Walsham's best interests at heart. Really want to be assured that all these objections have been thoroughly studied and the reasons for the objections taken account of. The road, Elm Drive, is a route to the school and the playground and the school bus stop. So there are a lot of children, particularly on those footpaths, who cross that road and have to do so between existing parked cars because there is parking issues in the road. So the danger is going to be increased if there are 15 more houses built at the top of the road. There is also an issue of a pinch point, I think, to gain access to this site. You've just seen a picture with a blue car and a white car in front of the gate, which is the proposed access. The distance between those two cars, I've checked and measured, and it's in the order of about 1.6, 1.7 metres. We often get visitors parking on one side, and if I park on the other side, that is the gap that is available for domestic traffic, deliveries, dust carts, and emergency vehicles. If they encounter that situation, they simply will not be able to get through. It is not practical. There are other alternative access routes, I'm sure, that could be considered. One being at the top in Grove Road. This is regularly used by the owners of the land to bring their equipment through, as opposed to coming through the gate off Elm Drive. Presumably this is because he feels that Elm Drive is not a suitable access point for his equipment. Surely this must apply to construction lorries that are proposed to come down there. There's going to be situations where, because residents are parking in the road, construction lorries will be mounting paths and causing disruption and possibly endangering people's lives. As I mentioned, there are other access points. I just wonder whether enough people have been down to the site to look at the practical applications of this route through. And if not, could we expect them to be able to do that before the planning permission in outline is granted? There are practical issues as well as safety issues.
Are you about finished?
Yeah.
If you've got one more sentence, that's fine, but if you finish, that's great.
Just lastly, there is a potential danger issue with the garages that front directly onto the Elm Drive Road for getting in and out.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the objector? Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. You're talking about the current user of the site accessing from Grove Road. Do you know if that person owns that access then and owns the potential development site? I'm trying to tie in, we have an application that doesn't include that access because it's outside of certain coloured lines, which doesn't matter. But it seems that you're describing somebody can use the Grove access and use the land. Is that all in the same ownership of the current person?
I believe that it is, because whenever the field has been worked, tractors have always come in through that gate onto the land. The land is owned by somebody, the access is owned by somebody. So there is an existing route there.
I think we need to clarify the land ownership with the agent or the applicant when it comes to their questions, because clearly they might have some other arrangement. We don't know what the legal arrangement is, but I understand the question. But we will, when it comes to your Mr. Platt, we'll ask you then. Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you. It was just a quick one. You mentioned the width, if you've got cars parked on either side on Elm Drive.
Yep.
Just as a sort of hypothetical, because we can't decree this to happen, but if there were double yellow lines down one side, would that remove the problem? Would it then, you know, if everybody could only park on one side,
it would
access,
help, but it's not a particularly wide road. Domestic traffic would probably get through if that were the case. We often get visitors parking in that piece of the road at the moment who are not residents. There is very little other place for them to park, and even with double yellow lines there, in such a position, who's going to monitor them parking? There will be no wardens. They'll just park. And then when an ambulance comes, it won't get through.
Thank you. Any other questions for the objector? Can I just ask about those garages? They're associated with the houses that are to the left of if you're looking towards the site. Are those garages owned by the houses to the left? And I just wondered if they had other parking spaces off the road as well as the garage, or is the garage the only parking spaces for those dwellings?
The arrangement, yes, they do belong to the houses to the left. Two of the houses have a single parking bay and a single garage. The other house has a double garage and no parking bay. So if you're not parking in the garage, washing the car or whatever you want to do out there, you are parking in the road. As I've mentioned, in the event of a visitor pulling up opposite where that car is parked being washed, there is no way through.
Thank you. Any further questions for the objector? Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. We don't have a supporter. We now have the agent, James Platt. Over to you.
Sorry, Chair, just in terms of the order here, about your question of clarifying the ownership, can I deal with that now or can I deal with that afterwards?
Can you deal with them afterwards?
Right, okay. Sorry. Good morning, members. Thank you for the opportunity today to speak in support of this application. Enshrined in the development plan and national policy, the provision of a sufficient number and range of homes forms a key component supporting strong, vibrant and healthy communities. In the case of this application, through a grant of planning permission, there is an opportunity to contribute up to 15 new homes, including affordable housing, towards the supply of housing in mid-Suffolk. Doing so through the development of land within the settlement boundary of Walsh and the Willows, a sustainable location where there is a convenient access to a range of services and facilities. The application site is enclosed by existing housing and situated comfortably within the built form of the village. In that regard, the proposal represents the infilling of a parcel of land rather than the outward expansion of the settlement. Through the appropriate density and quantum development proposed, the proposal will make effective use of this parcel of land whilst ensuring its design can appear congruous with the established pattern of development in the area. The application follows pre-application discussions with the council, whilst it's been subject to extensive consultation, including with the Highway Authority, who raised no objection to the proposal. Although it is noted that an objection has been received from Walsh and Willows Parish Council, where material considerations have been raised, we consider these to have been addressed by the technical consultees and your officers. To conclude, the proposal accords with the development plan when taken as a whole. Equally, the proposal complies with the National Planning Policy Framework, representing a sustainable form of development that is consistent with the economic, environmental and social objectives of that framework. On that basis, we respectfully ask members to approve this application in accordance with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd now like to address the issue of the land ownership of the alternative access point, that would be helpful, I think.
No, fine. I suppose my starting point really is the fact that the officer has addressed this within the report. I'm here as agent. We have an application site identified by the red line. I have confirmed that the land in question that I think is being alluded to in the representations is not in the same ownership as the applicant. So as far as I'm concerned, in terms of materiality, that's the planning application. That's as far as I'm going to go on the matter.
Thank you. Can I just ask if before the applicant you know, before this applicant owned the land, if they've recently, did they feel that, you know, your red line area and that access, were they in the same ownership in the recent past, by which time I mean like in the last 3 years?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, historically they're under different ownership.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for the agent? Doesn't look like you've got any questions. Thank you very much. So we now have the ward member, Councillor Winch.
Hi, I'm speaking against this application, but I just want to be clear what I'm speaking against and what I haven't got an issue with. So the area of land lies within the settlement boundary, and it's been identified as a potential site for housing development for quite a long time. The community were expecting a planning application for this to come forward. And this application is really about the principle of development and the access arrangements. So I'm fine on the principle of the development. It's the access arrangements that I'm not comfortable with, and I don't really feel the council has considered the issues in enough detail, is where I'm coming from. If you look on the planning portal, there's 17 objections from residents and a detailed objection from the parish council. The vast majority of that are around what I would call access arrangements in the wider sense of the word. So the application envisages a single access point used via the Elmside estate, which you've seen photos of. There are two potential access points of this land, and they probably existed for hundreds of years, and more recently it's the access from Grove Road that's been used for agricultural purposes. I understand that the access from Grove Road is not part of this application, and I do understand the issue of the planning committee considering issues outside of the red line. The community has always thought that this was going to be coming forward with two access points, not one. This will mean that the 75 houses currently on Elmside plus the 15 additional houses, either 90 in total, will be served by one access point. Now, I just want to cover some details here. So, emergency access. LP29 states that all developments will be required to demonstrate safe and suitable access. Now, as you'll see from the planning portal, there's considerable parking issues on the Elmside estate, and this can restrict access for larger vehicles and there's potential safety issues. I'm quite puzzled about the SCC highway statement on the access, as it doesn't seem to have gone into any details at all. But the single point of access combined with the volume of parking is problematic in any emergency situation, and it's not clear that access can be guaranteed. There are often situations where large vehicles such as the MSDC refuse collection lorries are unable to serve the estate because they cannot get around all the houses. Just want to talk about the construction phase. There is also a particular cause of concern during the construction phase, as all vehicles will pass through the existing estate and be very disruptive to residents. The nature of the road and the pattern of parking will make it really difficult for large lorries to access the site, and it's not reasonable to expect existing residents to accept this level of disruption. The officer's report states, and I'm quoting here, should this application be approved, details of access, on-site parking, on-site turning, manoeuvring, etc., will be agreed at reserve matters stage. This would mean that we'd be accepting a planning permission which is really about the principle of development and access arrangements without addressing the major concerns about access. The report also states that construction traffic is limited to approximately 6 HGV movements over a 4-week period. I find this statement A, extremely difficult to believe, and B, strange that we appear to accept this figure on face value without any specific conditions enforcing this or any data supporting it. Just want to go on to wider access arrangements around pedestrian and cycle access. The current plan excludes any provision for additional cycling and walking access to and from the development. The officer's report notes the concerns with pedestrian and cycle connectivity and states that full details would again be sought at the reserve matters stage. Surely, as this application is focused on access arrangements, this should be covered now.
The officer's report ignores the Walsham-le-Willows Neighbourhood Plan, WLW6, which details the expectations for pedestrian and cycling connectivity, and the report gives little credence to policies LP24 and LP29, where the expectation is we'll be prioritising movement by foot and bicycle. Potential options in this regard were discussed in the Parish Council submission, i.e. opening up the access via Grove Road, which is not part of the current planning application, or the creation of a pedestrian route to Grove Park. A couple of specific things I wanted to mention. I understand that this is only an outline permission, but the shared surfaces idea, where the path would be part of the road, would be different from the estate, and I think if this ever went forward, that would be a very confusing thing to do. And finally, the master plan approach, part of Walsham-le-Willows Neighbourhood Plan WLW2, explicitly states that where developments are for more than 5 dwellings, a master plan style approach should be followed, informed by public engagement and collaboration. Now, I understand that this is something that's not mandatory, but I am disappointed that the officer's report believes this requirement is only relevant for the reserved matters stage, and I would have thought we'd have given more enthusiastic support for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Winch? Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. Given what we've got in front of us, what could make this acceptable?
Right, so this I appreciate it may be something impossible to square. I think we wouldn't be here if there were 2 access points. Yeah.
I think we would, because it's 15 houses. I think that's...
No, but we as objectors...
Oh, sorry.
It
would be a committee.
We're objecting not on the basis that somebody wants to build houses here, and we hear that, and that was expected in the community. We're here because the proposal that came forward has caused consternation on that estate. It is an estate with a lot of traffic on, and it's like, are we serious here that we're going to now put all these houses tagged through that narrow entrance without any other way of getting to and from it?
Thank you. Any further questions for Councillor Winch? Thank you. We now need to open this item up for debate. Anyone wish to say anything first? Councillor Warburton?
Yes, when I first looked at this and the layout of it, it struck me that this was the sort of problems encountered when you have a development behind other developments or within existing developments. So the access, and at first sight, you look at Elm Drive and the access, there's obviously sort of a dead end where the access to this site is. But from the experiences from the parish council and the ward member, that how that drive becomes congested with parked vehicles, there's obviously a sort of design element in that drive and the access to it that restricts access to the actual site. I think the economic argument is a good one. It's 15 more houses, 5 affordable houses, which, in terms of, the presumption there is in favour of development, of actually sort of getting those houses built. The comment that if there was a second access point instead of 2 garages, then we probably wouldn't be here with the same concerns. I'm not very comfortable with this as a proposition. I'd like to sort of explore if there were grounds to refuse it on the lack of access. There is it would be good that Suffolk Highways had actually sort of looked at this in a bit of a broader context rather than the actual design of the roadway within the development, which at first sight looks fine. We're waiting for the details. So that's my feeling. I'm not comfortable with approving it until we've really thoroughly examined whether we could refuse it on the grounds of access.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence?
Thank you, Chair. I am very impressed with Walsham and Willows Parish Council's report and the general inclination of the ward member. Everybody supports development on this site, that's no doubt. But they're unanimous with 17 other objections, I think Councillor Winch said, was that objecting on the access route. And when you look at the access route as well, okay, the narrowness and everything else, the road surface is in terrible condition. Whether that's relevant directly to this application is possibly not. However, I am dismayed that the officer in particular has decided to put greater, would appear, I should say, to put a greater, higher balance on what the highways say than 17 objectors and the parish council. And it's my personal opinion that this balance has not been addressed. I consider the residential amenity of the Elmside estate under Local Plan 24 and the National Planning Framework 2035 gives sufficient evidence that the residential amenity is impacted. And yet the information we're given by the officer is that it isn't, that's a deferred matter. No, it's not, because this to access here and now affects the residential amenity of that estate. So on that basis, I will be objecting to this application.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin?
I mean, similarly to what's been said, there's no doubt that this is, you know, it's in the neighbourhood plan as an area for housing. There's clearly support for that, but there isn't support for this being a single access site. I just wanted to sort of ask, really, I noticed that the Mid-Suffolk Waste didn't object either, and we've heard that their, you know, refuse lorries sometimes already can't get round the existing estate, but I noticed that they haven't objected, highways haven't objected. I just wanted to explore, really, is there any way to sort of kind of reconsult and say, guys, did you just do a quick desk study? Have you actually looked at how narrow this is? Could we have a second opinion? Would that be a reasonable thing for the committee to ask for? So that's a question, really.
Over to you, Gemma.
Yeah, I don't think it would be unreasonable if you don't feel that you've got sufficient information in front of you to make that decision today. From my point of view, I would say highways and waste will have looked. From our previous experience, waste will have done plotting to check could their vehicle get in, turn and get out again in forward gear. That is one of their specifics that they will always ask us for if they don't believe there's enough room. So I would generally say I have got confidence in them, but that is absolutely entirely within your gift. If you wanted to defer for that reason, or indeed defer for a site visit if you felt the need to go and see it in person, but happy to take highways and waste advice if that's what members would like.
Thank you. I must admit, I am quite disappointed with Suffolk County Council Highways, and that's probably not the first time I've said that, because clearly this is not an ideal access point. And I just wonder, thank you for your comment about the waste. Do they look at, you know, fair enough, they want to get out in forward gear, so they're looking to see if there's a turning space within the development. You know, have we got a guarantee that they have actually looked at how they're going to get in the development in the first place? That's not quite the same as can they turn around on the development. That's not the same question, is it? So thank you for that suggestion, Councillor Elkin, but we'll move on, see if anyone else has got any comments they'd like to say.
All I will say, just to antagonise everyone, is that I'm pretty sure that if we were just building a new estate, you can build up to at least 100 houses with only one access. Is that's right? Is it 100 or is it 150? I can't remember, but
I think we've gone as far as 200 actually, Councillor, for single access.
So 75 plus 15 is not, you know, the maximum. And my other thing is that what we're looking at is they don't own that, you know. So we are arguing against something that is, we're banging our heads against a brick wall. That's how I feel at the moment. But yes, I was just going to say that, you know, 75 plus 15 is not the maximum. And I think surely, like I said, and our consultees aren't highways, we can't just put another, you know, keep asking questions until we get an answer that we like. You know, this is what they've given us. And I'm in no way saying I'm all in favour. I think it's a marvellous scheme because I appreciate that the access is not ideal. However, I think we will be struggling to carry this through as a refusal with a fairly sort of flimsy excuse, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Councillor Carter, sorry, I keep... your hand is just behind Councillor Elkin's head, and I keep not being able to spot it. Thank you.
Okay, I'll accept the excuse for Councillor Elkin having a big head. Right. I didn't say that. No. I would have a genuine concern about having approving this on the access on a singular path. As a mobility user, and having a single path, even with the width of current pavements, if somebody's trying to cross on the other side, they end up walking in a road. Having two paths on each side actually would alleviate some of the issue for the pedestrian standpoint, actually having the use of either a pram, mobility scooter, for somebody with a cycle, although they shouldn't be cycling on a path regardless. But it would alleviate some of the problem. However, looking at this as well, I'm very aware of access issues regarding possible of ambulances from areas in my own estate, and I can see this being a compounded issue. Whilst there's already an issue currently there, adding on 15 homes, it doesn't sit well with me. They would be compounding an issue. It's outside of the what we're looking at, but it would still be impacted by. So it's difficult. It's having no objection to actually having housing there, but the access, that's what I would not be without having seen it in person, I just can't accept the access as it is. So that's the reason I would be objecting.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. I think the fact that the applicant doesn't own the access of Grove Road is irrelevant. It's not a planning issue. What we're trying to decide is, on balance, is this access acceptable? And I still maintain, on residential amenity to the people on that estate, the answer is no. And it's demonstrated, again, by the 17 objections by residents, it's by the parish council, and the general feeling all round presented. So the fact that the applicant doesn't own the Grove access, they could purchase it if they want. Everything's got a price, but that's not a planning issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hardingham.
Yes, I think this application is an extraordinarily wasted opportunity to provide significant benefit to the residents of Elm Drive by providing an extra access, and also by providing new pedestrian and cycle access, as has been pointed out by the ward member. And as Councillor Lawrence says, the fact of ownership at the southern end of the site is not relevant. It clearly has been used in the past, traditionally for farming purposes, and I would feel unable to support the application in its present form.
Thank you. I'm sure that we have all got developments within our own wards where there is an issue with access through an existing development to another development. There's access for the construction traffic that's a problem. You know, I can name at least 3 within my ward where that has caused a lot of friction. And I also think that this is one of those horrible, contrived sites. Again, I can pinpoint one in my own village where, yeah, everyone agrees it's an enclosed site with houses on all sides, and yes, we can put some houses there, but we need a proper, well thought out access requirement. And I'm worried that Suffolk County Council have let us down. They have really practically made no comment on this access. And I completely agree with Councillor Hardingham and Councillor Winch. We've got a missed opportunity that we could have created a pedestrian, even if it was just a pedestrian link through the site, to increase permeability for pedestrians and cyclists. And this concept of the red line area and the land ownership, clearly, although it may not have been in the same ownership, whoever was using that site had obviously got some arrangement with the landowner at the bottom because that's the way the agricultural vehicles went in and out. So it's one of those contrived little sites where they're trying to get away with putting houses on, and highways haven't objected. But we probably don't have sufficient reasons for refusal because highways haven't objected. So I'm just wondering whether we can move down a slightly different route, and we can, as Councillor Elkins suggested, can we defer for whatever reason we can think of a good reason to defer it? Is that a way we can move forward on this? Because I think at the moment we're in a difficult situation. Councillor Lawrence.
Sorry to keep on, Chair. I think we have, and we've got to take guidance obviously from the officers, we have a basis for refusal of approval on the basis of Local Plan 24 residential amenity and National Planning Framework Policy paragraph 135, and that is in the officer's report. So I think on those grounds I would like to propose we object to this application.
Okay. Do I have? So can we just outline what those LP 24 and MPPF, whatever paragraph you said? Can we just actually maybe the officer can help with telling us what those policies are?
Yeah, I've got to log back in again. I think it was on sorry. Paragraph 7.1. Perhaps the case officer could read that out to us, please.
Yeah, so paragraph 7.1 refers to policies LP24 and LP29, and paragraphs 110, 115, 116, 117 of the MPPF.
So it says there that they, on paragraph 7.1, does not severely affect the highway network. Now, if the Highways Authority have not objected, then presumably that means that they don't feel that it severely affects the highway network.
I would say so, Chair, if you don't mind if I got a couple of points on what's been discussed. Yeah, that is the issue we have got, is we have not got a holding objection or objection from Suffolk County Council Highways. We would potentially be looking at defending this appeal by ourselves, because County Highways would be well within their rights to say, we don't have any issue with it, you need to substantiate this yourselves. Now that in itself is not a reason for not doing something, more something to be aware of. But ultimately, yes, County haven't raised that reason. They will do if they believe there was a severe impact, and we do have to be careful of that word, severe. Do we think that impact is severe? To come back to your earlier point about deferral, I think we could do, and we've got a couple of options for deferral, whether members want to go on a site visit, as I mentioned earlier, whether we want to defer from further advice, or whether you'd like to defer for a risk assessment on a reason for refusal, so at least we could take that point away and work on that reason for refusal and give you further advice. So I'm happy with any or all or some of those options, Chair, if that helps.
Thank you. But we have got a proposal from Councillor Lawrence, so we need to find a seconder for that proposal. Or does Councillor Lawrence want to come back?
If I could, please, could I refer everybody to page 31 of the officer's report, paragraph 5.6. That states policy LP24 of the Joint Local Plan and paragraph 135 of the NPPF seek to ensure development does not detrimentally affect the residential amenity of neighbouring residents and delivers adequate amenity to future occupiers in order to achieve and maintain well-designed places and the health and well-being of communities. Now that is a paragraph I'm saying hasn't not been considered adequately. The officer in this point says that's something for reserved matters when the layout and everything is done. No, this is relative to the access that we're being given now and the residents on that proposed access, is my point. And so my objection is based on paragraph 5.6 and those policies there.
Thank you. So we have a proposal. We need a seconder. Is anyone willing to second Councillor Lawrence's proposal for refusal on the grounds that it doesn't meet LP24 and paragraph 135? If we don't, Councillor Hardingham?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am prepared to second it because I think this is a point of principle. You know, we seek to create vibrant and living communities and embody principles of good design and good urban design, and this does not exemplify that at all.
Okay, so we now have a proposer and a seconder for that motion. Did you want to come in on something, Councillor Haddingham?
It's just to upset everyone. I just want to say that your argument, Terence, is objective. I think to say, you know, is it? I'm trying to find how it affects it. I think is something that some people say that anything, if they were building two houses at the end, that could be affecting them. And I think, sorry to sound like an embittered old bat, weary, you know, someone who's been on the planning committee for a long time, but 17 objections is not very many in the great scheme of things. It is a small number, and generally neighbours don't like having houses built on them, and like I say, if there was two at the end, that they could say that was affecting, you know, all manner of things. And so I think that they will, you know, take this straight to appeal, and I think they'll get it. So sorry, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence?
If I may come back on that, please, with a little bit of respect. The objections aren't based on the basis of the properties being built. The objections are based on the access, and that's what I was referring to.
Okay, Councillor Elkin?
Thank you, Chair. I just don't feel we have very strong grounds to refuse, but I do feel we have quite strong grounds to seek some improvements. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that.
So we have a proposal which has been seconded. So unless anyone's got anything further they want to say at the moment, I think we have to take that to a vote. So I will ask the... do you want to just read out what we've got and what we're going to vote on?
I think Claire and I might just need a minute or two to sort the final wording and then check that with the proposer and seconder, if that's okay. Sorry, Chair. Thank you for bearing
Right.
with us. Claire and I have just had a discussion and having listened to the debate about how we can knit the policies that have been quoted together. Thank you for giving us the policies and position you're in. I think I just wanted to say we've got to be very careful about determining the application in front of us. I know there's been a lot of conversation about the second access. We're happy, the agent has affirmed that position, which is it's not in their ownership, and we can only look at that. You know, yes, if it was blue line land, I'd absolutely be saying something different to you. It is not. Whether they had a right of access to mow it, maybe they had a right of access to mow it. We don't know. We've got no evidence to that effect. Where we're at is there is no second access. We've got one. The question we have to deal with is the impact of the 15 additional dwellings unacceptable? I think the discussion Claire and I have just had is we would be concerned on highway safety terms given the advice we've got. So if you felt strongly that this wording does not go on the highway safety side enough, I think that might take us somewhere slightly different. The draft we've got, which I'll read in a second, is about residential amenity and that impact on the existing neighbours. Whether you feel that captures what you want, I'll obviously read that out in a second. And I think we still have concerns as to whether that is a strong enough reason for refusal and would be successful at appeal, and whether maybe deferral for that risk assessment for some further advice might be an option. You could obviously come back and still refuse on that grounds, but we would have some more information for you. So I just wanted to kind of clarify those points initially. So just to come to our proposed reason based on the discussion so far would be the proposed development would result in an unacceptable intensification of use on the existing highway network. This would be detrimental to residential amenity. The proposal is therefore contrary to policy LP24 and LP29 of the Joint Local Plan and paragraph 135 within the National Planning Policy Framework, which seek to ensure that development does not detrimentally affect the residential amenity of neighbouring residents and delivers adequate amenity to future occupiers in order to achieve and maintain well-designed places and the health and well-being of communities. Hope that's somewhere for those, but happy to, for the proposal, happy to make any changes if members would prefer. Thank you.
So
Chair.
I'll just go to the proposer and seconder. Do you think that that is what you are trying to propose?
Even better than, thank you.
So, and the seconder?
I was just going to say that there is a consideration in here for improved connectivity. Is that, you know, that development should promote improved connectivity for settlements? Is that relevant to mention in this context?
I think that goes back to the land ownership problem. We've obviously, we know we've got one gap, we're making use of that to provide the access. That does include footpath, and we could work on the exact details of that. We know that the second access is off the table, and I mean, in my mind, we could potentially condition that as part of layout if we were talking about approval and say that the layout must retain adequate space to allow future access. While we can't force it to happen, we can make sure a gap is left, particularly for pedestrian use, and we could go as far as putting a turning head in there if we felt strongly enough, so that that link is available were the owners of the area of land to the south willing to engage with that one. So I think you could deal with that by condition were we looking to approve the development, but I'm not sure I see how the existing access that we're looking at doesn't do that. Hopefully that clarifies, but I appreciate it's a bit of a difficult one.
Councillor Lawrence?
Chair, if I could just seek clarification from the area planning manager, please. You mentioned something about a referral. Is that your desire to gain improve or other, how shall I word it? Is that an idea to gain additional elements which would strengthen the objection with respect to a possible claim against? Is that what you're asking?
I think Claire and I sort of had this discussion, which is without highways, things are difficult. We obviously have got the residential amenity point, and we could argue that one. But yes, by deferring, we could go away and revisit that point with highways. As Alex previously mentioned, we've got very little advice from them. their letter virtually says no objection, here's the conditions. So what we haven't got is any narrative behind what they have looked at, what their impacts are. So potentially any advice from them and waste services, I think, as Chair mentioned, have waste just looked at the turning circle? Have they worked out that they could get their waste lorries through with that existing scenario? Is that intensification beyond the site? Has that been looked at? So that would be what we'd be looking to see if there's anything there. We could also then look to get advice. For example, if highways were not on board, could we get an external highways consultant to give us some more independent advice that then gives us more clarity, either to reinforce the reason for refusal or to say, actually, we have gone through this with a fine-tooth comb, we've got our own highways advice separately, and this is what they say, so members have got more information to take that decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence?
In that case, if it's appropriate, I might like to consider withdrawal the current objection proposal on the basis of what the area planning manager has said, and I would propose that we refer our decision to allow the planning manager to obtain further information into support of a future objection.
So you are withdrawing your original proposal. I presume I just have to check with the seconder that he's withdrawn that. And are you now making another proposal for deferral?
I would, yes, if that's correct, I propose that we...
Right, so we've now got a proposal for deferring for the officers to go and find some more information about highways, waste and other things.
Yes, so my proposed wording, Chair, would be defer for highways and waste advice and seek a risk assessment on the following reason for refusal, which is what I read out.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Elking, you're willing to second? You can second.
Need to second that. So that's looking at sort of issues. You mentioned also, is it also including risk assessing those grounds?
Yeah, absolutely. So particularly we've said highways and waste, but if there was anybody else we felt would be relevant to that, it doesn't preclude us getting some further advice generally if other issues are raised by the highways or waste that we think we should deal with. And that then we would also be risk assessing the reason for refusal, so it probably in highways terms, but also advice as to could we strengthen it, what are the risks of doing so, and then we could report those back to you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence?
Can I ask the area manager, that still does include the principle of residential amenity impact? Because I liked what you said when you read out that lot.
Yep.
I'm just wary that you're a bit reticent on how strong that refusal basis would be, and I'd like you to consider how you can strengthen it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know we put it in the terms of a risk assessment, but that would look at both sides to that. So that it would be a risk assessment on the reason for refusal that I read out, so the wording, and that would look at chances of success and chances of any issues were we to defend an appeal on that basis, and were we to, how we would amend that to strengthen it if that's where members went, or what issues we think we might encounter at appeal. We would look at it in the round. It wouldn't just be we're concerned for these reasons and leave it there. We would give you more advice on that basis.
Thank you. Councillor Warboys, did I see you waving your hand?
Yes, Chair. I think just to express my feelings about this, it's I think it's very sensible at this point to go back to Suffolk Highways and ask for clarification, to ask if they've actually looked at the impact of this on residents along Elm Drive. You know, obviously we're looking for some support from Suffolk Highways here in order to refuse the development, bearing in mind that this access point does have a negative impact. I think it does give the developer an opportunity, if you like, to look further at sort of securing a second access point, which would, if you like, sort of take away all these concerns. So I think that time could be used really profitably by the developer to sort of look at ways in which this situation could be avoided. if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, I'm supportive of a deferral. I'm not sure I would support a through route. So although I want to access somewhere else, I think if it was used as a through route, it would be a rat run. So I would be concerned about it having more than one access for vehicles. What I'm after, of course, is more pedestrian and cycle connectivity through the community. So I will be supporting this proposal for deferment, but I'm just wondering whether, given that we're deferring it, what the committee's feelings are about having a site visit while we're deferring it. I don't know. I mean, I'll go and have a look anyway because Waterman Road is just up the road, but I'm just wondering whether there is any I'm not saying we should do one. I just wonder what your views were on whether we could add that in whilst we're deferring it. Do people want to go and have a look? Councillor Carter?
My feeling is a site visit would be highly appropriate to assess it based on the images. It's a bit difficult to do, and it'd be handy to actually envision how any other any access would be beneficial.
Are you making a proposal to amend the? Can we do that? Or can we? Would you like to make a proposal to ask the proposer and seconder if they'd be willing to add that into the proposal?
Yes, I am.
In which case, I'm going to ask the proposer and seconder if they are happy to add in a site visit whilst we're on the deferral.
With due respect, Chair, surely site visits is a later agenda item in the committee.
No, not now. We can have a proposal to defer to have a site visit, and we can have a proposal to defer for the officers to go away and do some work with their other consultees, but we can add them in together, and you can have a proposal to defer for us to have a site visit and the officers to go away and get some more information.
Understood. In that case, yes. Thank you.
And is the seconder happy that we add in a site visit?
Yes. No, I think that would be good.
We now have a proposal for deferral for the reasons read out by the planning manager and for a site visit to be arranged. Has anyone else got anything else they want to add to the debate? If not, I'm just going to get Gemma to summarise what we're voting on, and then I'll ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Great, thank you, Chair. So we're looking to defer for a site visit, also highways and waste advice, and to seek a risk assessment on the reason for refusal in regards of the unacceptable intensification of the use on the highway network and the impact that has on residential amenity, the full wording of which I previously read out, but I won't rehearse that now.
So are we all happy that we know what we're voting on? So I will ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Yes, of course, Councillor. Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. And the site visit will be arranged in due course. Right, we've got one more item to move on to, item 7C, but I think we're just going to have a 5-minute comfort break, if that's okay, before we move on to the Bramford case. So Thank you and welcome back. We're now going to move to item 7C, DC 250138, Woodlands, 3 River Hill, Bramford, and I will invite Nikita Goodrich to introduce the application to committee.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. So this is application DC 250138. It's a full application for the erection of one self-build dwelling. This is the site location plan. We have been made aware that the applicant the applicant now only owns the area outlined in red, as the land and the dwelling outlined in blue has been sold. We have sought legal advice regarding this, and it's been confirmed that there's no implications of this, as the red line remains unchanged. This is the constraints map, showing that there are no heritage assets nearby and the site is not within the flood zones. It also shows that the site is outside of the settlement boundary, but borders the district boundary between Mid-Suffolk and Ipswich. As the site is outside the settlement boundary, the proposal is contrary to policy SB03 of the Joint Local Plan. The proposal also does not meet the requirements of any of the exemptions, including policy LPO1, which is the windfall infill policy. However, there is currently a lack of a self-build land supply, and therefore the local plan cannot be considered up to date in this case. Given the shortfall of the land supply, significant weight should be given in support of the development, and paragraph 11 of the NPPF should be applied. Under this paragraph, the default position is to approve the application unless protected areas or assets give a strong reason to refuse, or if negative impacts clearly outweigh the benefits when considering the NPPF as a whole. In this case, it relates specifically to establishing whether the site can be considered a sustainable location. This is discussed further within section 3 and 4 of the officer report. This is an aerial map showing the site being pointed out by the red arrow. This shows that there are several facilities nearby, such as supermarkets, a GP surgery, schools and pubs. These facilities are all within walking distance or a short bus ride away. There is a lit footpath all the way along Bramford Road into both Ipswich and Bramford. This is therefore why officers consider that the site is in a sustainable location. This is the site layout showing the dwelling positioned centrally on the site. The plan on the right-hand side shows that there is approximately a 54-metre distance between the closest neighbouring dwelling, which is to the south of the proposed dwelling. These are the CGI plans of the dwelling. The dwelling is designed in this way to enhance its viability as an eco-dwelling and is designed to meet the applicant's needs. Our housing SPD requires applications to demonstrate that they meet the definition of self-build, and this relates to the initial occupant having primary influence over the design of the property, and the property not being built to a specification offered by developers. The applicant has submitted a statement detailing the applicant's involvement in the design process, and the application documents set out that the new dwelling is for a long-term occupation by the applicant. In order to secure the dwelling as a self-build property, a unilateral undertaking has been provided, and this therefore ensures that development contributes to the self-build land supply. These are the elevations of the dwelling, showing that it will be clad in corrugated sheeting, with most of the fenestration being on the south and west elevations. This is the ground floor plan, which shows that the dwelling has 2 wings, which include a musical and art room, and the main body of the dwelling has usual amenities such as kitchen, living room, a utility, and a ground floor bedroom. This is the first floor plan, which shows that the dwelling includes 3 bedrooms at first floor level. Onto site photos. This shows the overall site and where the dwelling would be positioned. This shows the area to the south of the site towards the closest neighbouring dwelling. This shows the area to the west towards the railway tracks. And this shows the area to the northeast of the site, and further round to the north of the site. This is a recent view from Google Maps showing the current state of the site. There are various trees on the site, some of which are proposed to be removed, but they are in poor condition and have minimal value. All the trees protected by TPOs are being retained. This is a view of the closest neighbouring property to the south. And this is the location of where the access is proposed. In conclusion, officers consider the site to be in a sustainable location and would be a genuine self-build secured by a legal agreement, which would contribute to our self-build land supply. There has also not been any objections received. Therefore, the recommendation is to delegate to the Chief Planning Officer to secure a unilateral undertaking, and only then to grant permission subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to point out before we go to questions that we do have Robert Feeks from Housing Enabling if we've got any questions about the housing land supply and self-build, stuff like that, I think we can direct to Robert. So does anyone have any questions? Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. This is just, from my understanding, really, it's sort of the justification for this plot being outside the settlement is that it's self-build. It's obviously a huge building that they're proposing. Can you just run me through again how do you justify being a self-build? How much involvement does the person have to have?
Is that a question for you, Robert? Or is that a question for the planning officers? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Elkin. I'd refer you back to the case officer referred to statutes. So a self-build being building or completion of a dwelling by an individual of a house to be occupied by that individual. The government, in primary legislation, there is a duty on the council to boost the supply and the delivery of custom and self-build homes. Therefore, we have to keep a self-build register, which is the way that the government has set out of tracking what the level of self-build demand is that should be met. We haven't got a sufficient supply of self-build plots, self-build dwellings at present. Therefore, the argument here is that the lack of supply there is what tips the balance over into recommending approval.
Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. I get a bit about the supply. I'm sorry if I'm being a bit slow on the uptake, but I'm basically, do they have to build it themselves for it to be a self-build? I mean, what I'm getting at is what's to stop somebody buying a nice plot, saying I'm self-building, buying a plot outside the settlement area, getting some builders in and an architect and putting a house up. How do we ensure that it's self-build? What do they have to demonstrate they've done to meet that?
So they have to demonstrate that they have had primary input into the design. They don't have to be physically laying bricks. They can do. That can be a form of self-build, but it's not required. So what the applicant has done in this case is, as set out in our housing supplementary planning document, we expect you, if you're relying on that as the justification for your development, for you to submit a statement which shows this is the input that I have had into the design. And then, as was mentioned, were this to be approved, we will be looking for it to be restricted by legal agreement so that the first occupant of the dwelling is that person who had that input.
Can I also just mention, although this might not be related to planning permission, is that there's also still, they are still exempt if they're self-build, and that can be enforced by our infrastructure team, I believe.
The SIL exemption can be enforced, yes. So if in terms of the SIL exemption that they receive, I believe it's 3 years. If they move out within 3 years, then they have to repay a proportion of that SIL. But just be clear, that is a separate factor to the planning decision.
Yeah. Because even if they default on the SIL exemption, there's still a house in in the countryside. It's effectively what we're saying. Are there any further questions? Councillor Warboys?
Yeah, I've just sort of clarified it. Would this also fall under the sort of exceptional design exception for isolated houses in the countryside, isn't it?
I'll ask the officers about that.
Exceptional enough.
No, we're in a different scenario. So if we set self-build to one side for a minute, if we are outside the assessment boundary, you've got a couple of choices. You're an infill, so we've got house, and we slot something in the middle. That's not that. We've not said this. It's not an LPL1 infill. It's not a conversion, and it's not a replacement of an existing house. So there is no grounds under our joint local plan in which to grant this. You could, as you mentioned, go to the MPPF, and in an isolated location, you could build an exceptional new property. However, we don't believe this is isolated, so we haven't worked on that basis. So for all other purposes, we should be saying no. The final, however, to that is we have to have this statutory duty for self-build. We don't have enough self-build properties currently, so we should give great weight to that argument. So we then go on to the MPPF and we feel this is a sustainable location. Nikki showed the plan with the different services and how you'd walk to them and bus services. And because we think this is sustainable, at a time when we don't have a self-build land supply, we think we should grant on that basis. But it is there's a lot to work through to get to that position. But hopefully that clarifies where we're at with that one.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Councillor Hardingham.
Thank you. Just a point of information first, really. In terms of the cladding, you stated that it was going to be corrugated sheet. In one of their design statements, it states very clearly that it's going to be timber, and that as a result, it will fade into the background against the woodland canopy. Can you square those two?
Yeah, I think in their statement they were using examples of what other people have done. So they had stated that these are the materials that other examples have had. But we have put a condition for materials to be agreed, so they'll come back with further details. We'll confirm exactly what manufacturer spec and stuff that they plan to use, and then that will be secured by a condition.
Thank you.
Yeah, another question?
Well, the other one was that from your photos, it looks very much as if quite a bit of clearing has been done on the site already, and a digger has been tracking around. How much of that sort of thing is acceptable prior to a planning application being considered before it compromises the application?
The only real restriction on that would be in terms of the land use or for BNG. Now, because we're self-build, we're exempt from BNG, so there's not any restrictions. So, and even then, we backdate to a previous time in order to secure where it was, regardless of any work done. In terms of land use, it is part of the original house's garden, so provided that they're doing works related to their garden and it doesn't go as far as an engineering operation. And yes, there's clearing, but I don't think anything there struck me as an engineering operation. They would be entitled to do some of that. And then again, the amount of clearance would be whether it's acceptable in terms of kind of Hedgerow Act and that kind of thing. But again, kind of clearance of shrub in your own garden is generally acceptable.
Do you want to come back?
Well, just for future reference, if there were a BNG requirement, would that then be a material factor, doing work prior to application?
So it wouldn't, in terms of the decision. What would happen would be their BNG would be backdated to the point before they did any of the work. So if they've removed some nice trees and loads of hedgerow and say, great, I've got bare soil, there's nothing there, 10% is dead easy, we plant a couple of trees, the BNG rules allow you to go back in time to the point at which it was all in place. So only in BNG terms, not in terms strictly of a decision.
Any further questions? Councillor Lawrence, you're just stroking your face. No one else got any questions? Right. I would now invite the public speakers. We don't have parish council, we don't have an objector, we don't have a supporter, we don't have an agent or an applicant. The ward member is Councillor James Caston. He's unable to be here today, but he's sent a written statement, which I'm going to read out. So this is Councillor Caston's comment on DC 2501328. The proposed River Hill dwelling is an interesting design and is suited to the area. It is the type of house I like to see built. My thoughts are the area is very rich with trees and a green environment, and I would like the horse chestnut, pine and beech, if healthy, to be suitably protected should the condition be available. If there is any new planting protection, for instance, a condition to make sure it's still there in 5 years or so, I would like to see that as well. But otherwise, I have no great issue with this permission being granted. Regards, Councillor Caston. So I will now open the item up for debate. Councillor Hardingham.
It's the sort of house I like to see getting built as well. And I think it's interesting. I hope they go with timber rather than corrugated steel, to be fair. But apart from that, I think it's an interesting, cool house, and yeah, I'm all for it.
Any other comments? Anyone else like to contribute? Councillor Warboys?
Well, I certainly agree with those comments. I think it's an ambitious project, but we're not here to condemn ambition. It's good to see this kind of what could be well an exemplar piece of design going forward. And there is an arboriculture report recommendation, so that I think satisfies Councillor Caxton's comments about trees.
Can we just check that with the officers? Councillor Caxton's comments about trees, are they covered by the conditions you've got?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm in favour of the officers.
Councillor Headingham? As per the officer recommendation.
Blah, blah, blah.
And Councillor Warboys, you're seconding. Does anybody else wish to make any comments? If not, I too, I like to see modern houses. I just wish there were more small modern houses because they all seem to be so huge. But I can't condemn them just for wanting a big house. But I do think in terms of the sustainability of this location, I actually think it's probably more sustainable than an awful lot of the smaller villages we've got in mid-Suffolk. The fact that you've got a pavement with street lights all the way into Ipswich and all the way into Bramford, if this isn't sustainable, then where is, you know? It might be outside the settlement boundary, but it's got a bus service. You can walk to Aldi, you can walk to the centre of Bramford, you've got pubs in Bramford, you've got a school in Bramford, and there's a pavement. So it's a lot better than a lot of places. So although it might be outside the settlement boundary, and therefore, by definition, it's in the countryside, it isn't really. And it also backs onto the railway line. So they've got a bit of might have a bit of a noise issue with railway, but it's their plot. And I'm also a little bit sceptical of a lot of self-builds, but this actually genuinely looks to me as if this is a true self-build, that this applicant has, it's a very personalised design for a start, you know, and it's a one house. You know, we've seen outline applications for 5 self-builds. Well, I don't quite get that, because how can you live in 5 houses all at once? You can just live in one house. So I'm in favour of this development, and as well as the condition about preserving the trees on the site and any new planted trees. And clearly this house looks like it's a sort of eco house with a lot of sustainability features, but are those actually conditioned? Are we really going to get all that good energy and water sustainability? Is that in a condition?
Yeah, that's also conditioned.
Does anyone else wish to make any comments on this item? If not, I think we're just going with the... we've got a proposal to approve in line with the officer recommendation, so I don't think we need to get it read out. I'll just ask the governance officer to do the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is in progress. Councillor Carter, would you like me to take your vote verbally? 4. Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 7 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you very much. So our final item on the agenda is site inspections, and we have just agreed to have a site inspection in Walsham Willows, which the officers will be sorting out for us. Are there any other requests for site inspections to be reported? No. Right, thank you. So I'm going to close this meeting at 12:15. The next meeting of Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee is on Wednesday, the 11th of February, at 9:30 here in the Council Chamber. So thank you very much.